Retreat Series, Dhamma Talk number 60. Okay, we have been talking based on the Vipassana, 6 pairs of consciousness that we can observe in our practice. And then separately we discussed in detail about 5 types of liberation, vimukti. So to liberate the mind, one must culture the mind first. One must train the mind, guide the mind, culture the mind. And in here, if we are going to culture the mind, we need to understand a little bit about the mind. Buddhas taught us or pointed out to us there are 3 major faults in the consciousness. 3 major faults in the consciousness if we want to train it. The first one is donikasa. It's basically the mind is very difficult to tame. That's the nature of the mind. It's very difficult to tame. Second one is lahuta. The mind, the rate, the speed that they arises and pass away is so fast we cannot even comprehend it. Many times faster than the speed of light. Lahuta. Yataka pani patito. Yataka pani patito. What it means is this mind goes anywhere at once. It travels anywhere at once. It has no boundary, no limitation. Without control, it just goes. Basically, it's a freewheeler. It's just freewheeling star. The mind goes without any border. And it's just like water looking for a hole to seep out. Same thing. The mind looking for an object and just goes wherever that object takes. Those are the 3. Difficult to tame. It changes, it passes away at a speed of beyond our comprehension, and it travels without any boundary and without control. So before you train the mind, you must need to know what these are. So when you want to culture the mind, what do you need? You need to discipline the mind. You need to guide the mind, and you need to harness the mind. Because if you let the mind stay as it is, what we call normal, everyday normal, the mind will become wilder and harsher, crazier, and eventually it'll cause destructive actions and suffering. That's where it would lead if you keep the mind stay wild as it is. So in here, we need to understand about ourselves. We all know, we all love ourselves. When we say we love ourselves, we focus mostly on the body. We keep our body really, take care of our body really well. But if we don't take care of the body, which means we don't eat junk food, don't eat on time, don't eat nutritious food, salty food, fatty food, super sweet food. You don't sleep properly. You smoke, you drink, you do drugs. That means you are not taking care of the body. And if you do that, drink too much, lung disease. Eat too much junk food, fat foods, artery plaque, high blood pressure, too sweet, diabetes. Automatically, you will be contracted with disease depending on how you live and how you conduct the body. How you live means the way you eat, the way you sleep, the way you drink. So, the same thing, if you didn't take care of the mind, especially while it is tender, in other words, not, haven't gone too far out yet, at the younger stage. We have to start at the younger stage. If we don't take care of the mind, we'll be contracted with mental disease. Just the body is, the mind also will be contracted with mental disease and illness. And once you get this mental disease and mental illness, it will take control of your life, and you will lose the opportunity to become a true human being. And let's see, we are contracted with serious physical illness or disease. What do? We follow the doctor's instruction to a T. We are very attentive about what the doctor tells us, what to do, what not to do, what to eat, what medication to take, and we follow to a T. Because we want to get well. But the funny thing is, we don't really take care of our mental illness. And mental illness too. We got instruction. We've been diagnosed by the greatest physician, and we are being instructed by the world's greatest physician of mental illness, the Buddha. The Buddha told us what the diseases are, and he told us what kind of meditation to take. He taught us how serious it is. But we don't believe it. We don't even think it is important to take care of it. Physical illness, doctors say, you do. Mental illness, the greatest physician said what to do. We don't. That's the fact. And the Buddha, he actually cultured his own mind. Nobody taught him. He learned how to do on his own. He cultured his own mind. Cultured, danta. Pali word danta. And culturing mind means, in one way, it's the ability to face all good situation, condition, all bad situation, condition, without being attached and without having aversion. You don't get attached to anything that is good and beautiful and nice. And you don't have any aversion towards anything that is bad or disagreeable. That is the presentation of what a cultured mind is. And the Buddha taught us the way, in other words, the method, the technique, how to culture the mind, which he had discovered by himself. All Buddhist teachings are about how to purify the mind and how to keep the mind away from kilesa, mental defilements. And then become cultured and become a wise mind. That's the Buddha's intention, and that's what he taught us, so that we become a cultured and a wise person. So in here we are talking about the body and the mind, two parts, what we call self. And let's pick up the pain. The pain arises from the physical source, the body, as well as the mental source, the mind. It arises from both. But whenever we have pain in our body, whether it's in a backache or neck ache or little headache or little discomfort, we pay great attention. Headache, take Tylenol. Little pain at the back, rub some liniment, and so on and so on. As soon as there's a discomfort, physical pain, we take care of, or we take action to eliminate it or to reduce that intensity of pain. Also, there's a mental source. A pain and mental source is arising all the time, but we don't pay any attention to it. We don't pay any attention until and unless it becomes the focal point, center point of our attention. In other words, it becomes really bad, really serious, such as going into deep depression, don't want to do anything, and so on. Only then we think we are something wrong with it. We can't focus our mind, mentally agitated, irritated all the time, angry at everything and anything. Then we think that's something wrong with the mind, mental illness. But before that, we don't think we are anything wrong with it. That is how our perceptions are. But one thing was to be able to prevent those kind of mental illness, what we consider that something wrong with us. To prevent that, you have to start taking care of your mental state, or the stress level of the mental states while it is at a tender stage, while it is still young. It is better to prevent than cure when it becomes a full-blown case. So we have to start changing our attitude. Change our attitude. How to view or look or perceive at the mental illness. And to be able to take care of these stress is to look at in a larger work in terms of the context with the scripture. We need to have a mental strength to withstand the 8 highs and lows of life, or 8 loka Dhamma, loss and gain, having lots of friends, no friends, praise and blame, and suffering and bliss. Whenever these we react to it, and we need strength to withstand these kinds of highs and lows of life. And only if we can take care or to withstand the highs and lows of life, happiness or peace will come into our life. And to do that, we need to develop a powerful mental states, 5 controlling mental faculties. It is vital to practice or develop these 5 mental states if you want to gain equanimity towards these 8 highs and lows of life. And if you practice it, Buddha himself guaranteed, if you practice these and develop these 5 mental states, 5 controlling mental faculties, you will definitely get equanimity. So we are focusing right down to the self, individual, how to, what to, and how important it is to take care of the mental disease. But let's look at this mental illness, how it, through the change of cause and effect from every one of us, how presented, how it manifests into the larger scale, in the big picture, in the scale of the world. So let's look at our history of our world. In the history of our world, if you look at it, in the past, we have suffered from major famine, diseases, and war. Famine, disease, and war. We have suffered in the past. And if you look at right now too, we are still suffering from this. We still have a lot of famine in many countries in the world. Some people still dying from hunger. And diseases, no need to say. It is still some diseases we take care of with the science, advancement of science, and we eliminate it, it disappears. But a new one comes on, it just can't stop. You eliminate one, another one comes up. That's what the disease is happening right now, right here. And also war, it become more prevalent. You heard about war more often and more widespread than before. War going on everywhere. We are talking about past and present. And for the future, it is sad to say, these will keep on going. They will, in the future, we'll still have famine, we'll still have diseases, major serious diseases, and we'll still have war, even a bigger war. And of course we develop science, okay, to prevent famine, to have very powerful pesticide resistance, germs resistant grains and drugs, and so on and so forth. We think we are trying to solve the problem with the science, advancements of science, and we believe we succeeded. But this advancement of science is a tool, simply a tool. Science is neither good nor bad. Science is neither evil or good. But it is the people who use that science, make that science become evil or make that science become good. We need to keep in mind, it is not the science, it's not the technology. It is us who are using it, deciding to use in what way makes it evil or good. That's what science is. We are really depending on science nowadays, but we have to be careful of how we used it. And here, as a society, we give great emphasis on the physical disease. We know in the past 3-4 decades, major diseases come out. Within a year or two, we manage to formulate a medicine, and we wipe about. In the past too, in the Middle Ages, plagues come in, and about a century ago, Spanish flu come in. We managed to push this back, and now is COVID-19 coming in. We are fighting a war with a disease, but we think we are fighting the war against the disease, against the virus. But actually that is not true. We are fighting ourselves. Think about it. We are fighting ourselves. Okay, let's look at it in a larger picture here. These mental diseases, everything is fighting ourselves. It's about our mind. It's not the body, the mind. The mental speeches are spreading. Because of these mental diseases, one of the popular word nowadays is climate change. Climate change speeds up. Okay, climate change, it exists throughout the past history of the world. It changes. Ice age, go back and forth. Polarity in the north and south. It changes, but it changes very gradually, unnoticeably, so that living beings on earth can adjust and flow with it. But our mental diseases are so bad, we are pushing that mental disease, that with the mental disease, the change of the climate a lot faster speed than before. This climate, I'm not just picking up a word from the modern news or modern science. Over 2,500 years ago, Buddhists taught us about it in a discourse called Conditions, Patana. I'll take one line from it. That one line is Udu Bhojanampi Upanisya Pichyo. Upanidya is, Upanisya is strong dependence, powerful dependence. We have to depend on it. Not just casually, it has a very powerful force, strong force. What is it? Udu, it's a climate. Bhojanampi is the food. And the Buddhists led the food and the climate together. And those two are conditions of strong dependence for living beings to exist. Udu Bhojanampi Upanijaya Pichyo. This climate change and the linkage to the food, Buddhists show us this is very vital for living beings. Because of this climate change, automatically the food supplies changes. Okay? In other words, all the fertile place will become dry and semi-desert. You can't grow, food supply stop, famines come in. We talk about famine now. We know in some countries it's very bad. That will become widespread, worldwide at one time, if we don't take care of ourselves. And along with the famine, what? Diseases will come in. Diseases is, I will dub it, population thinning disease, not just little disease. It will thin the population of the world. With science, we change something, we create something, and at one point it'll come to a tipping point that we can't control what we have created and change side effect. Diseases come, viruses comes, and then we are really invading into nature. We are wiping out the vegetation, the forests of the world, which we are really dependent upon. It's a balance of living beings and these vegetation. We produce carbon dioxide, they absorb it, they are groups, depend on what we put out. And what they put out, we take it. And as long as it's in a state of balance, it's okay. But now we are producing more carbon dioxide through our technology, through the usage of the fossil fuel, coal, oil, gas, and so on, which create nuclear energy. It is a double-edged sword. And as we take over their land, the forest, there's a lot of animals and insects and birds. Some of the bacteria and insects and virus, it is a proper place to be with those kind of animals or insects or bugs, but not with human. But now we are taking over their territory and we are doing the border crossing. And these viruses and bacteria and germs are not compatible with the human existence. And that's how the diseases will spread. Population thinning, diseases will spread. Where does it come from? It all comes from our own mind. Our mind is the one who's creating. We think we are progressing. But whenever we do, there's the wicked greed, the profit is there, loba, wicked greed. That is the one that is disbalancing the nature, the balance of the nature. So in here, once we have this population thinning disease and famine, what happens? Automatically instability to the humanity will come. War happens. As soon as the instability to human security off, when there is no security, that means violence, that means war. War arises. And also when there's a famine, oppression from the famine, people cannot live where they live if there is no food. They have to move, they have to move. And nowadays we have all the borders. Mass migration will happen, disbalance will happen, and chaos will follow. In other words, nothing but suffering, suffering, suffering. And we created this. We speed it up, we push it up. That's what it is. Why? Because of the mental disease. So these kind of catastrophe, worldwide scale catastrophe, famine and war and disease, it has existed in the world, past in the world it existed, and still existing now, and it will still exist in the future. So probably you say, okay, it happened in the past, it happened now, it will happen with it. It's just a logical sequence of interpretation. From the Buddhist point of view, it is even deeper and more certain than that. As a Buddhist, we believe in the principle of karma vipaka, the law of cause and effect. The law of cause and effect is, we are here, we exist. Our existence is due to our actions from the past. Actions from the past created it, and we are the result of it. Vipaka. Action from the past is karma, our existence is vipaka. And in our existence we created more actions. And these actions we'll have a reserve, which means we have another rebirth. Keep on going. But whenever we as a humanity does, whatever humanity does, we do both things, good and bad. I called it salt and pepper karma, the black karma and white karma, salt and pepper. So we have all these wholesome actions and unwholesome actions as a humanity doing it, and it will keep on going. And when it keeps on going, it can go only in two directions. One direction is to become better and better and better. Another action is become worse and worse and worse. But as we have said, like a child, the mind is like a child. If you give a freedom, it goes towards the bad things, the bad habits, love the bad, fond of bad, unwholesome. That is the nature of the mind. So it's tend to become more and more unwholesome, unwholesome, unwholesome. That's where we are heading. And this nature of unwholesomeness has become so much piled up. What happened is, mental illness become worse and worse and worse, in other words. And because of this piled up of unwholesomeness, and the mental illness become worse and worse, the world, as a world scale, moral corruption become worse and worse. That is how you can see it. The other one we say unwholesome, karma, vipaka. In our real world, we see them as moral corruption. That is the effect. Moral corruption become worse and worse. And every country in this world, if you look at it, you will find it. In other words, moral corruption is so prevalent, is so strong, it becomes the cause. And the catastrophe of the world is the effect. This moral corruption producing more carbon dioxide, moral corruptions producing climate change, and the whole cause and effect go on. That is one obvious point I'm finding out. But there are so many things, of course. It will be endless if we keep on talking about it. Moral corruption. That's the one that is creating the catastrophe of the world. Through that we created wars. Through that we created famine. There are people starving, and there are places they don't want their commodity to drop, so they throw away the food into the ocean so that they can maintain the price. They manipulate the prices. That's moral corruption. That's moral corruption. That's how we are creating our own disaster. And that is mental illness. The base, the root is. So these are the modern examples in a larger scale I'm trying to weave through our Dhamma talk and present what the Buddhas taught us. I'll give a few from the very specific example from the scripture. So this is at the times of Buddha, it's in the scripture. It's about a monk or a bhikkhu. Putikata bhikkhu, his name is Putikata. And this monk, he's one of the monks who is following the Buddha and practicing as taught. And at one point, his whole body is full of virus, infection basically. Infection, bacteria and germ. And the fellow bhikkhus take care of him at the beginning. But it becomes worse and worse, and that the foul smell is so much, and all these I don't know the proper word, from the boils, all these seas and liquids and falling out and smelling and stinking. Eventually, the other bhikkhu stopped taking care of him. They can't take care of him. And Buddha's aware of it. As he aware of it, he came over. He didn't tell anybody anything, any other bhikkhu. He himself go to that monk. He take care of it, change his bandages, he change his clothes, he give him a bath, and really take care of that bhikkhu. So of course, when Buddha himself is doing that, other bhikkhus come and help out and do the same thing, because they cannot sit at the sideline. And that is how one of the vinaya, the rules and regulations of a monk to follow, comes up. When a monk is sick, the fellow monks must take care of it. That's the top priority. You must even drop your practice and take care of it, if it's need be. That's one of the rules. You don't discard another monk who is in suffering and in disease. That's a little sideline how vinayas are formed during the time of Buddha for the monks. So this monk, he is happening like that, and the reason is in one of his past life, of course, Buddha with his great mind told this what happened. At one point he was, let's call it a hunter for little animals and birds. He trapped them, okay, catch the little birds and then little animals. And what he does was, he sells them for his livelihood so that he can make money to live. That's what he does. So when you do that, if he catch them and if he kill right away, and if he cannot sell it, it will be wasted. And also, if you can sell a fresh meat, you get more money. I'm guessing. So what he did was, when he caught these birds, he clips their wings so that they cannot fly away, run away. Little animals break their legs so that they won't run away, and he can just keep it in the cage within the fence. And when people want it, he would grab it out, kill them, and sell it. That is his livelihood, because of his greed, so that he can get a maximum amount of money for the fresh meat. And at the same time, the mental state of cruelty is in his mind. Without cruelty, you can't do it. If you have compassion, you can't do it. But that's how he lived. And all these birds and animals, they got infected and suffer and die. That is what he had done in the past, okay, past karmic action. And the result, he is paying in this life. As a bhikkhu, he is paying. He comes out with boils and infections and fouls and in pain. That's what is happening. So that is cause and effect, pointing out what the cause and effects are. And of course, remember that salt and pepper karma, those are the pepper karma, black karma. And in his life too, many lives ago, he just practiced, he do many good things, and he practiced enough in this life, at the time of Buddha, in this life of a bhikkhu. He has enough parami. In other words, he has accumulated enough good practice, okay, so that he can have an attainment. He has a parami to become arahat. But even though he has a parami to become arahat, he has suffered because of what he has done. Karma vipakasa. That is the law. So on his deathbed, that's so serious, he's going to die. On his deathbed, what he did was, he observed the pain. Vedana nupassana. He observed the pain in such an intense and focused that he actually become arahata, before he passed away, through observation of the pain, vedana vipassana. So just pointing out the actual fact in the scripture of how karma vipaka operate and how satipatthana can be a part of this painful life to release from that pain. Hunting, he hunts. His hunting is due to lobha. He wants money. He hunts to make money. And he's hunting and torturing and killing, gleefully, because he has dosa, great volition of dosa. And this potentiality of karma, what he has done, followed, and he even has to pay in his last existence before he became an arahat. The same thing in the world, what we have done, all the dark black karmas, it's piling up so much. Now we are paying in a worldwide scale. One modern word is moral corruption. It's so great, we are creating our own disaster. So in here, dosa, that's the lobha. This one is dosa. Dosa is the mental illness. Lobha is the mental illness. Dosa, mental illness, is it causes hurts and harm. It kills, it destroys your honor. Just to example to put it, how dosa can change the mental state. Let's say you saw a deer on the road under your headlight of a car. They see the big glaring two eyes with light beaming, and they freeze. Why do they freeze? There's a danger coming, because that's a fear. The fear froze everything, both mentally first of all, and then physically it manifested into. That's what dosa can do. And also human, us, when we have intense anger, great anger, we have already established these kind of angers and stress can produce high blood pressure. Some people even got to the brain hemorrhage and died through the moment of anger. At moments of anger, people got heart attack, and so on and so on. Read in a medical book, you'll find these things. What anger can do. Anger is the mental illness can do to the body. That's mental illness, dosa. Lobha, mental illness. Let's take a little bit of example here. Okay, this is something that everybody can understand. STD, sexually transmitted disease. Why do you get that disease? It is your great desire, it is your great lobha towards the sense pleasure of a touch. Lobha is the mental illness, STD is a physical illness. Alcoholics, it's a disease, he termed it. Why? You have the greed for that drunken mind. It started with it. Drug addicts, sex addicts, what? That grasping greed for that sense pleasure. Lobha. That is how the mental illness and physical illness are connected. And the third disease is called moha, illusion. We call it illusion, delusion, uncertainty. Understand this way, this illusion and delusion always associated with lobha and dosa, greed and anger, because you won't do those angry things and then wicked desire if you fully understand. You wrongly understand that is moha. So these three things, lobha, dosa and moha, are the mental illness. So let's go back to our physical illness. Whenever we have a physical illness, we go to the root and take care of the root cause. Your artery is plugged in your heart. The surgeon will go right to the spot. They get up, they prop it up, they put the stents right to the root. If you just beat around, have a little massage, have a little acupuncture, or run around, it wouldn't. Temporarily it might maintain. But if you go to the root, you take care of it. The root cause. If you can go to the root cause, that illness or disease can be taken care of. And the same thing too, mental illness. The mental illness, the Buddha has taught us how to cure or take care of these mental illness. Go right to the root. Right to the root. Don't treat the symptoms. Don't treat the symptom. You must treat the real cause. Only then you can take care of it. And also nowadays in modern science, there are proof now. I think maybe about 70-75% of the physical illness and disease, the causes come from the mind. Mental illness is the cause, according to science, about 70-75% of physical illness are directly related to the mind. So what is the root cause of the physical illness? Mental illness. What is the root cause of the mental illness? Lobha, dosa and moha. That's a fact. We all know about it. And modern day doctors, if we have disease and illness, what do? They give us, they guide us how to eat, what not to eat, how to live hygienically, exercise. These are parts of the prevention, curing processes. They will give you antibiotics, medication, surgery, and so on. The doctor gave us both prevention technique and curing technique methods. And the same thing, the Buddha taught us about mental illness. And in here, Buddha actually gave us many methods and techniques how to take care of mental illness. How to prevent and how to cure. If you look at study the scripture, you'll find. And in here, what is this mental illness? It's mental defilements, kilesa, lobha, dosa and moha. That's the kilesa, is the virus of mental illness. Okay. And these mental illness, the virus, we can find it in a transgressive form. We can try them in an obsessive form, and we can find them also in a latent form. These viruses have different forms, 3 different forms. What is this virus? Kilesa. So you can call it transgressive kilesa, obsessive kilesa, and latent kilesa. So you have to attack them directly, whatever that is. Transgressive kilesa. Let's call it as a gross nature. What you actually do physically. You go out and beat them, or you shout them, you're angry at them physical deed and verbal deed. Those are transgressive form, transgressive kilesa. Antidote is basically morality. In Buddhism we call it 5 precepts. Okay. What to avoid, what to refrain so that we won't hurt or harm others as well as yourself. And if you observe these precepts, morality, instantly it will take care of the transgressive form of kilesa or transgressive kilesa virus. And obsessive kilesa. What is obsessive kilesa? In a very simple way, it is wanting to break the 5 precepts. You haven't broken yet. Okay. Morality control it, you don't do it, but still in your mind you still at times, at situations, at conditions, you still want to break that 5 precepts. Okay, I just use the precepts. There are 5 precepts, there are 8 precepts, 9 precepts, 10 precepts, 227 precepts for the monks. But let's stick with 5 precepts. We want to break the 5 precepts. And in your mind, jealousy and envy is arising for others. Conceit is always there. How dare. Jealousy, envy, conceits are in your mind, even though you don't just take it out and put it into action physically and verbally, but still in your mind. That is the obsessive form of virus, obsessive kilesa. That one Buddha gave us another tool. It calls samatha, okay. Concentration meditation. If you practice concentration meditation, you can keep them under wrap. These thoughts, the jealousy, the envy. As long as you have concentration meditation, they are under wrap, they are at bay. So even concentration, there are 2 types. One is the jhanic concentration. Okay. That's a concentration meditation. Another one is called khanika samadhi, momentary concentration. That comes from satipatthana vipassana. 2 lines. Jhanic concentration from the samatha practice. Khanika or momentary concentration is from the satipatthana vipassana technique. 2 different. But regardless, both do the same thing. They keep it under wrap. That is how you can take care of the obsessive form of virus or kilesa. And the last one is latent form of kilesa or latent form of virus. This one is, first and foremost, you think you have overcome it. I think you are okay, you have finished your job, you have finished your work. That's what you believe. Because it's been a long time you don't have these kilesa in your mind, in your speech, in your deed. But sometimes, for some people, when under a set of conditions, they just simply arise. That is latent kilesa. You don't even know that you have it. But suddenly at a certain point, pops up. So what to do is, when you have that, oh, I still have it. And you have to keep building that 5 controlling mental faculties. Build again and build again and build again till it is totally uprooted. You get totally uprooted when you become a arahata, mega. Till then, you have to keep on fighting, keep on practicing. So in here, okay, let's go back to our modern day classic. We want to travel to the third world countries where the malarias are, or where the smallpox are, or whatever kind of disease are. Before we go to that country, we get an immune shot so that we won't get infected. Okay. That's prevention. That's what we do. And so the same thing in the field of the mind. We need to take immune shot if we are going into the domain of kilesa, domain of mental illness. But the sad thing is that domain of mental illness is everywhere. We are in there. If we are not mindful, we are in there. But if we are mindful, then we can prevent it. How can we prevent it? Simply put, first of all, refrain. Refrain is avoidance, morality. Restraint. Restraint is not engaging with sense pleasure as little as possible. Restraint. You can even put it 8 precepts, 9 precepts, 10 precepts. Uposatha sila. When you get 8, 9, 10, then you are cutting off the sense pleasure from your daily life. That's restraint. Refrain, restraint. And be mindful in all your activities, daily activities. Be aware, be mindful. Whether you are at home or at work, whatever routine at home and whatever jobs you are doing at work, be as mindful as possible. Every day practice based on your lifestyle. 1 hour or 2 hours of formal meditation. Go to retreat whenever possible, short-term retreat, long-term retreat. By doing so, you will keep this mental illness at bay. By doing so, you will keep the kilesa at bay. That's what you can do as the prevention. But regardless how much you do, when a certain favorable condition for the kilesa to arise, it will arise. And total elimination of these kilesa, mental illness, or the viruses, is only possible when you take the medication of Arhata Mega or Arhata Mega Pinya, wisdom. When you get the wisdom of the fourth noble person, then you will totally eradicated all the mental defilements. May all of you be able to practice and live according to the instruction of the Buddha, his prescription. Follow his prescription to a T, and may you all be able to eliminate the mental illness once and for all, as soon as possible.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you very much.